the button. I sure did. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the I'm Sorry But podcast, where I definitely clicked the button. Today we're talking about scorched earth politics. It's a light topic for today. Something airy, something no one will get upset about, you know.
I notice every single time I'm on this podcast, it is always like the world is over and we're all doomed.
You missed the podcast where we gender bendered, and it was phenomenal. That was a fantastic
I I
podcast. If you guys haven't
I
watched it,
I,
it was episode 6.
I watched episode 6 and I have to admit I was a little shocked because I asked Andrew, I'm like, did you add did you Photoshop boobs on me? And he goes, nope, already there. I was like, thanks.
Damn.
I'm like,
Savage.
I'm like, oh. I'm like, that's great. I feel like I could have had a better photo, but yeah, sure, let's go with that.
Bruh, your photo was so much better than mine. I was like a 41-year-old PTA soccer mom with like 3 kids.
I mean, at least we had kids.
All right then. uh,
My,
I thank
my
you.
the head didn't fit the body on mine, so I looked like a fucking monster. I looked like I looked like Frankenstein's monster if like you had just put like kind of like a woman's head on top of like a fat dude's body. Like that was fucked up.
Did
Like,
you see mine? Did you
yeah,
see
I
mine?
did. I saw yours. At least yours.
No. No, don't even try to make excuses. It's just terrible. It's
I
terrible.
mean, at least and I'm pretty sure you run that PTA with an iron fist.
Probably. She looks like her name is Karen.
She looks like she's gonna call the manager.
Yeah, she does. She
She,
looks like she's
she,
very well versed at calling the manager.
she looks like she has 911 on speed dial.
She has like the local manager phone numbers, like all
Yeah,
of them on speed dial.
like she doesn't call 911, she calls the police station.
Yes, exactly. She calls Sergeant so and so. His direct desk number. All right. So we wanted to talk about uh, a couple of things that we had noticed when it comes to politics. So we do understand that this is going to get contentious. These are just our views as we see them. And you're welcome to disagree with us. We actually welcome it. I challenge you to disagree with us. Put it in the comments. Send us a message. We will address your questions, and we will probably get to them on air. But I wanted to start off by asking Nick, or by simply stating that there is an amount of. Actually, before we get into that, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Adrian, and with me we have Nick Valero. Nick, you wanna?
Yeah. My name is Nick Valero. I've been on a couple podcasts. You can find me on the Waffle Press, serving up some comics, and keeping up with the nerds, where I like to talk more nerdy stuff than politics stuff. But this gives me a nice little platform where I can actually curse and talk what's on my mind.
Yeah,
That kind of stuff.
and there's probably gonna be a lot of mind talk in here. So,
Yeah.
uh, to get back into it, I was noticing a couple of trends. I'm really big on trends. For those of you who don't know me super well, but I was noticing that it seems as if, as politically speaking, there is one party who is willing to compromise, willing to negotiate, willing to um, try to have a bipartisan approach to things, and then there's another party that kind of, I feel, stands its ground and just kind of demands that you come to it. Um, I'm pretty sure we don't have to say which parties are which. I'm sure we'll get to it later. Uh, but how do you view the situation, Nick?
So I view it as there used to be this understanding in politics, you know, where it was, I'll give you one for you, one for me. You know, I'm down to be bipartisan, especially if like it helps out my constituents and everything like that. But that means that I need to get something in return. You know, I'm giving you a lapse on tax, which a relief on taxes. That means that you give big business, you give Wall Street, less reins and everything like that. And what it kind of feels like is that in the era after the Trump administration and after everything else, kind of feels that the Republican Party has kind of gone to this like, no matter what, it's our way or the highway. And if you're not going to do what we want, then we're not going to agree to anything you want. So either we get what we want right now, or we just filibuster. We just sit down and do absolutely nothing. And that's a
Yeah.
real shame. It's a real shame because when that happens, literally taxpayer money is being wasted because these senators are basically getting paid and doing jack shit,
Yeah.
doing absolutely nothing to help the country, absolutely nothing to help their districts, doing absolutely nothing to help anyone except for themselves and their own political issues. And it's a shame.
It it is, and to talk about, like, for instance, the amount of waste there are 535, I believe, representatives in the Senate and the Congress. Both of
Yes.
them, all of them, have, of course, a nice, I think it's like $175,000 salary, along
Mhm.
with a staff of about 10 to 14 people, each of which also get paid about $100,000. So each senator really costs the American people about 1.8 million or around $2 million a year.
Right.
So the Senate and its salaries, the Congress and its salaries cost the American taxpayers about $1 billion a year
Right.
just in salary. Um, and like Nick says, I also feel like there isn't a lot of progress being made. In the era of our parents, there was a lot of um, typically I think in what I remember, because I'm kind of young back then, where people were friends. Like I think of John McCain, the late Senator John McCain, late great John McCain,
Right.
and I think of how he constantly reached across the aisles with Democrats to make bipartisan legislation. Um, and I feel as if we're going to bring Andrew into this conversation. Boop.
Yeah, there he is.
There he is.
Um, but here's the thing with John McCain. John McCain is a great politician.
Hmm.
Hell, the reason why we have healthcare still is because of John McCain.
Yeah,
Yeah. One
that
of John
was
McCain's greatest moments is the man had brain cancer, went into surgery, and in post op, and post op was told to stay in bed and rest. And instead, he put on a suit, went in a wheelchair, went in, I think, either a walker or a wheelchair.
got a cane
Oh, he had a cane. That's what it was. He had a cane, walked onto the Senate floor last minute before the votes were over and voted against his party.
with a very good showman's thumbs down flair. It was beautiful.
A giant middle finger to Mitch McConnell,
Oh,
which
and did you see his face? It sank and melted at the same time.
but the great thing, I mean, the one thing that John McCain had for him was that he knew he was going. Like he knew that like I'm not gonna stand another election. Like I'm most likely this is my last term.
Yeah.
It is his last term because even if he ran through the whole thing, he wouldn't. I don't think he'd be strong enough to like go for another election to do all these other things. Those are very exhausting. I'm almost positive even if he would have like, oh, I still have a couple more years, he probably would have retired after that session of Congress. I mean that his term. But John McCain is also to blame for kind of the situation that the country's in. He is the one that introduced us to Sarah Palin, which this led to the Tea Party. The Tea Party led to white nationalism. White nationalism led to Trump, and Trump led us to where we are now. It's a slippery slope that did that. It does. The head of the snake is at John McCain.
I feel as if he definitely contributed to parts, at least definitely bringing Sarah Palin to the spotlight. I mean, she was
Yes.
already kind of had a spotlight, where she was the governor of Alaska. Um, However, I feel to like place that at the feet of John McCain is a little bit unfair to him. Um, I feel like he would he would state his position, he would state his like life experiences, and he would just say how he felt about the situation. And I when you speak from a point of personal knowledge like that, and you're as well known or as prestigious, John McCain was a war hero. As he is, as as respected by the community as he is, you have a lot of power. Um, and when you say stuff like that, it reminds me of that one time where there was that heckler at a presidential debate or like a presidential town hall when McCain was still running for president, who had
Yes.
asked, who had said something along the lines of yada yada yada, Barack Obama isn't an American citizen and yada yada. And John McCain stops him in the middle of his sentence and says, "No, sir, that is
It's a
not
woman.
true.
It was a woman. It was
I
a woman.
know him. He is a. It's a woman. It was a woman.
Mhm.
No, ma'am, that isn't true. I know Barack Obama. He's a good man."
Yeah. That's the interesting thing because John McCain, when I say that it's it lays at the feet of John McCain, is the problem that he didn't properly vet his running mate. And the fact that you have a politician, a career politician like John McCain, who puts this lunatic like Sarah Palin on his on his ticket gives her a legitimacy inside the party. It makes her a leader of the party. So when instead of getting another career politician who can navigate and understands that there is some racist sentiment, which are sentiments going out in the air, but we shouldn't fuel them. Whereas Sarah Palin, she just kind of leaped into it and she didn't outright say some racist stuff, but she did allow for that conversation to come up. She would bolster, she would immediately tell lies, she would what was it, make false accusations about what was happening inside the Democratic Party, things that she didn't have any clue about. She went about like his what was it, his birth certificate, she went about his record, stuff like that against Obama, and that really helped in her legitimacy because she was on McCain's ticket. And because of that, she now had a voice, and that voice built a party, and that became the Tea Party. And from there, it really grew, and that's what kind of built that gave white nationalists and people who are utterly despicable a voice where they shouldn't have. And that's kind of like the real problem there. John McCain may have been a great politician and a great man, and a great American, but unfortunately, he did have his mistakes, and Sarah Palin is one of his mistakes.
Yeah, I'm not. Nobody is perfect, but yeah, I agree. He did make some mistakes. I also agree that he was a great man.
Because
I don't.
I agreed with John McCain's original pick. He was actually going to pick a Democrat to be his
Oh,
running mate.
that would have been spicy.
He was going to pick a Democrat to be his running mate, and then it leaked before they were able to announce. And then what happened was that the Democrat dropped out because he then started getting flack from the party, basically saying you can't be on a Republican ticket. And McCain basically went, but I want bipartisanship. I want the ability to look to my vice president and him give me the other side of the view of the position. I want to surround myself with people who have that. And because of this, because I think it happened like a week, 2 weeks before the announcement, they had to rush Palin's thing, her vetting, and that's what kind of led you down the slippery slope. And it's crazy because I think that would have been amazing. Honestly, if he would have announced that he
Yeah,
had a Democrat, he might have really run against Obama. Like Obama might not have won that election.
yeah. I think that that's well within the realm of possibility. That would have been
Yeah,
a very interesting Very interesting turn on our politics. Well, a throwback in some ways because that used to be how it used to be, but
Right.
in
Well,
a
then
different set.
then that means that as Nick is saying that he's the head of the snake of all this crazy movement. It's not him actually. It would be the actual two-party system that we're a part of is what created Donald Trump because
No,
it forced the movement to
no,
go
no,
ahead and cut it.
that's
Yes,
not.
it is.
No, it's not.
Because you just
That's
said,
not.
oh, he couldn't vet him. Well, how else are you supposed to vet when people are backing out from under you when you're a real person you wanted?
But that's not the situation. That's not the reason why his vetting failed. They assumed that Palin's vetting had happened. That's history. They assumed that they had vetted her, and they didn't go completely through it and everything else, and they didn't find all of her little dirty secrets. They just gave like a bare minimum vetting, and they pushed through. The two-party system does work.
Does it?
There are situations where the two-party system does work. The only problem is that when you start manipulating the two-party system, and one part of the fight, one party doesn't want to work with the other party. The whole point of the two-party system is so that way you can get two different views of the same of one situation. But if one party doesn't want to hear information, they don't want to hear facts, they don't want to hear anything. All they care about is this is what we want. I don't care if it's the right thing, I don't care if it's the wrong thing. This is what we want. Then that's when democracy really doesn't work. You can't have a democracy without a proper debate about the facts. And it's not that the two-party system is failing or anything like that. It's more that people are manipulating the actual systems in place
But if you can
to
manipulate it, doesn't that mean that it's failing?
Yeah, that's the bad part about the party system.
Because
Like, you're defending the bad of the party system, but that's what our forefathers didn't even want was political factions. Breaking it up, and then especially when you break it down to just two, it literally is what the political system is right now.
but you can't say
Stalemate,
that that's not
stalemate, stalemate,
but
stalemate. Oh,
but
now it's all going your way, going your way, going your way, going your way.
you can't say that that's not what the founding fathers wanted when that's exactly what the founding fathers did.
They did not break into factions. The
Yes,
first,
they absolutely did.
just look it
They
up
had
and tell
they
me
had,
when they had political parties.
they had
Political
democratic
parties weren't.
they had democratic Republicans, and they also had the Whig Party coming in.
Those
And
weren't
you
the founding
also
fathers, Nicholas.
hold on. The Democratic which are Democratic Republicans? That is the founding fathers. That is most
One
of
group.
the South. That is most of the South.
One group.
well, when
Okay,
we
and then
started, that was 13 people, right?
that
There
was
were 26 representatives to satisfy the 13
20,
states.
26 representatives, and then they then factioned off. So you had Republic, so you had Democratic Republicans, and then you also had Federalists.
In the
And
first,
going
I think in the first Congress, though, right after the Revolutionary War, we were just the American Party.
exactly,
We had not separated into parties because we were still trying to get away from the crown. But I think I want to say John Adams was part of a party. I might be mistaken. I'm not
he was a
sure.
Federalist. He was a
Or
Federalist.
a Whig. I want to say he was a Whig.
The Whig Party doesn't start coming up until closer to another 20 years, I believe.
So, uh, I feel like if we're gonna diverge a little bit, take a little branch off this main road of our own political dysfunction, and let's talk, I guess, really quickly about different types of rule. We don't have a two necessarily have a two-party system, right? If there were, uh, if the Green Party and the Independent Party had a bigger control of representation in the Congress, I feel like you would end up having more of a parliamentary system like they do in the UK, where there's a bunch of parties, and it's whoever can, basically get the most ministers to vote for a prime minister. That's who's in charge of government. And I feel like that would be the same way that our system would flow if we weren't so afraid to leave the two-party system, because it's what we've done for the last 300 years. But I'm not saying that it's a bad system. I feel like there's no perfect way to govern people. There's no perfect way for democracy because one person's a group of people are going to inherently be unhappy with what's happening. It's just the way it works. You're never going to please everybody, right? And so if you have only two parties, there's only two options. But if you have seven parties and you force those parties to have to, get to a consensus number or a majority number to elect who's in charge of the Senate and the Congress, for instance, or at least in the UK, the House and the House of, I don't know, Commons and the House of Lords, I think is what it is. Um, then it's different, but I don't think the House of Lords is elected. The House of Lords is appointed, I believe. I don't know. British government, not my government. Um,
There's
who
there's
knows?
too there's too many governments, too many ways that they work. Like, and who's to say ours is working better than others? Like, just look at Israel, for example. It was another spicy topic.
Yep.
They've had 4 national elections in the last 2 years.
Absolutely not the same thing.
No, I understand that. But I'm saying
I'm
no
just saying it's a
political
terrible
system is
example.
correct.
No,
No
but I'm
political
saying
system.
that's a terrible example.
Like, I think the
That's
way
like
theirs.
that's
The
No,
like saying
language.
can you
Mexico.
at least let me say what I'm going to say?
Go ahead.
Like,
Just
the way their whole political system works is that they have a bunch of parties that break apart,
Mhm.
and they need to get a certain amount of parties to work together and vote together in order to establish a government.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not saying that's better. As a matter of fact, that seems more convoluted and worse. The only real, like, democratic original way was the Greeks, and that was when every citizen had to vote, but then everyone had to be informed as well, and that's unfeasible as
Forced
well.
forced votership.
Yeah, like, that's unfeasible as well. There's no good way to do it.
So,
Like,
do you think that if we had forced votership, I think it's called compulsory voting, and we had direct democracy, as in my vote counts the same as every other person's vote, and that's the end of that. There's not a representation breakdown based off of population given to a state. It's just 35 million people say this and 37 million people say that. 37 million people win. Do you think that would be a better form of democracy? Because
no,
at
because
least
you still
in our current system, I feel like you end up with not really democracy as much as you end up with like minority rule. Because I know this is a problem like in the UK again. Let's go back really quickly. Because all you have to do is if you can get 26%, if there are 4 parties running, you only have to maintain a majority above those parties in a certain district, and that's the district or the person who gets sent to the chamber or to become a minister of parliament. So if you have 26% of a district, you could be sent to parliament. Uh, But that would mean that there's 74% of the people in your district who don't want you. That's
unrepresented.
that's minority rule. The same thing happens on our side by different mechanisms. But, for instance, there's the filibuster. Any one senator can stop any piece of legislation for any reason, and it has to be overcome by a supermajority, a 66, senator vote. And we all know that that's basically impossible these days. So how is it that the representative of the North Dakota, who represents like 50 or 60,000 people, can hold up a piece of legislation that if could hold up a piece of legislation despite everyone else in the country wanting it? They would have to vote it down. He wouldn't be successful. But if you just had 33% or 34% of representatives saying, "Nah, not for me," that's minority rule, right? That's minority veto.
the problem is that a lot of like especially now, what's happening is that the filibusters, what was it, the senators who are pushing the filibuster, what they want to do is they want both parties to talk. They want both parties to come to an agreement, and then we'll vote.
As it should be.
Not, yeah, we're not going to just be in isolated chambers. We're just gonna come up with a bill, and we're just gonna pass it through
Because,
because
like
that's
Andrew said, what ends up happening is tit for tat politics. Someone comes in and they're a Democrat, they make all these policies, and then the Republican will come in and destroy all their policies and put new policies in place. The Democrat will come in and destroy all of those policies, and the end product is we make no progress.
exactly. And the problem is that when you do that, no progress happens. But also, if a Republican doesn't go in with the Democrats to bipartisanship, then they can always fight it. If you had like 10 Republicans who agreed on this bill, it's really hard to say, well, Republicans don't agree with this message. Like, we don't agree with it. I don't know what exactly Mitch McConnell has on his senators, but like none of them really want to toe party lines, and they are
don't want to toe or not toe.
like they don't want to like step on party lines. Like
Yeah.
they really are, they're digging in and they're going into the trenches. And what these other senators were doing is they're trying to be the adults in the room and basically go talk to each other. I need you both to come to a fucking agreement. Come to an agreement. Come back to us. Once you have something that both of you can agree on, then we'll pass it. Because the minute that either one starts just passing laws, it's already a problem. Because that is just a dictatorship. We're just telling you what the fuck is happening. We're not voting anymore. Like that, because basically that's what you're doing. I mean, these votes are bullshit at that point.
Yeah, they're
Because we know what
ceremonial.
they're ceremonial at a certain point. We're just telling you how it is. Like this is like, oh, we're getting tax breaks. Oh, we're gonna be,
Yeah.
criminalizing this. Oh, well, this is now against the law. That's not how that works. Both parties are supposed to have an understanding and also cooperate with each other. Problem is that during Trump's presidency, he just kind of passed shit, and the Democrats really didn't have the power to say yes or no. They didn't have the party. I mean, they didn't have majority. Now that they do, they're trying to pass these bills, and the Republicans are just digging in, and it's a problem. It's a real big fucking problem, and the only way to get around it is for, if you disagree with it, to call your senator and tell him to stop, to get his ass to the fucking floor and go vote for it.
Him or her.
Him or her, doesn't, either one.
I think
No,
Nick's saying a male senator has more power.
that's not what I said at all.
I don't think so.
That's what I heard, man.
Okay, well, you can hear whatever you want.
Most senators, I
So
think, are male. I think with the exception of like 5 senators that are female, maybe.
yeah, majority of the Senate is male.
Majority, it's a boys' club. It's historically it's been a boys' club.
It's really bad when we have to celebrate that it's the first Hispanic.
Yeah, the first
Oh,
Hispanics.
the native, right? Was
And
a
Yeah,
recent one.
oh,
like
she's also right a senator. Or is she a
I-
senator or a
yeah,
representative?
I think
she
you might have been
is
representative.
she's a rep, but it's like the first
But like
native
Javier
representative,
Becerra, right? Our representative,
something like
our
that. Yeah,
senator, our junior senator. Who?
yeah. But what I'm saying is that these that's the problem though, is that no one's talking out and no one gives a shit. They're allowing their senators to kind of just do whatever it is they want. And the thing is that if you disagree with your senators, you need to make it known and tell them to get off their ass and go vote.
Do you think, Nick? And I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Andrew, tell me what you think. Actually, I'm gonna pose the question to Andrew.
Wait,
Andrew,
hold up. 23 female senators currently.
that's not
20,
bad. That's a lot more than
23
I
out of
thought there were. That's pretty good, actually.
23 out of 500 and how many?
No, no,
Senators.
senators out of 100.
Oh, out of 100? That's
23%.
actually,
I mean, that's
it's
not. It's
actually
not good. Actually, I don't want to say not bad. That's okay. We can
it's
do
almost a
better.
fourth.
We can
It's
do
almost a
better.
fourth.
We can do better. Yeah, it's almost a fourth for the sex that represents about 50% of the country. I think we could do it just a little bit better.
It's a
It's
fourth
okay.
of the Senate.
Progress. It's progress, right? What, 50 years ago it was all men. So
Yeah.
25% women is pretty great.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
Getting there.
So what I was gonna ask was,
Sorry.
Andrew, do you? No, it's okay. Andrew, do you think that with all of the points that Nick just made, that there's a way to get around the echo chambers? So I guess we're going to kind of branch off to the next portion here. Get around the echo chambers of that have been already established, that help lie to the citizens, that help lie to the people, or propagate a message that is very obviously, at least to us, political in nature. I'm not saying that the left doesn't have similar versions of that. There's like Pod Save America, right? It's generally like liberal, not propaganda, but it's very liberal points of view and very down with conservatism. Um, do you think there's a way around that, or do you think that those people are so entrenched in what they know and who they trust that it's possible to change? And additional question, do you think that the senators even really care, being that conservative senators or conservative representatives in the Senate and the Congress get a majority of their donations, not from small dollar donors like most Democrats do, but from corporations and PACs. That secret dark money that's made available to them by the what is it? That one
Hmm.
thing Supreme Court policy ruling.
The what?
There was a Supreme Court ruling that said basically that corporations have the right to freedom of speech, and money is speech. Therefore, you can spend a lot of money as a corporation and use that to affect votes. It's gosh, let me look that up real quick.
The one that corporations are people, right?
Yeah, corporations are people and can vote.
Case law in the United States. This opinion appears to be corporate personhood.
But it's a part with it's a part of like a whole ruling that the Supreme Court made. But that's basically the gist of it. Basically, corporations are people, and corporations can send their money to their pleasure to support whatever they want because corporations have political interests just like people do. Not,
Right.
not to say that, corporations aren't already staffed by people already. Why do the executives get an additional vote? But okay, what do you think, Andrew?
I think people are going to be dug into wherever they're going to be. It is what it is, right? That's how people are. They stick to their guns. They'll hold their opinions. Very rarely I think people will be swaying to change their mind. And that's just across the board as people. I think a good way to deal with that, and I don't know, I missed the first part because I was at work and I got out a little later.
No problems.
To deal with that would have been either, and I know it's never going to happen, never going to happen, term limits.
Yes.
Force blood in, and I say even repeal the fact that there's a limit to donations. Fuck it. Let corporations donate as much money as they want. They do it every 2 terms to a new person, brand new person. It's going to cost them a whole lot more than keeping someone on the docket.
You know what? I agree with that, but I also agree with there's a comedian, and I think I think this is like the best idea. I think that the new law that needs to be passed is that when you go up to the Senate, you have to wear a jacket like a fucking NASCAR driver.
Yes.
Who's sponsoring you?
Of
Yes.
who's sponsoring you.
If you
And
take
like you have to have every patch of like pharmaceutical reps, big tobacco, everything like that.
Yes.
So that way when people see you, they go, I know where he's voting. I know why he's voting in a specific way. Because the thing is that we don't know who you're getting sponsored by unless we pull up your
Right.
record. So we
And
don't know why you're voting a
and
specific way.
most typically, you're getting sponsored by a PAC that has all of its information very keenly under wraps because that's the way the system works. I think if you could, I don't want to be king for a day. That seems like a lot of fucking work. But if I had the ability to change um, a couple of things, I would probably put term limits, and I would make it absolutely mandatory that if you accept even a fucking dollar, you have to put the name of the person that dollar came from on a website. It has to be on a public registry, and it gets stored in the Library of Congress. Donated to McCain, donated to Nick Valero for senator, junior senator to California, and Adrian Alkers. You'll see the maximum donation on that bitch. There it is.
25 cents.
You'll see that 9999 on me, boy.
No, but the thing is that you when
So
you
right? And so So if Coca-Cola is
Transparency.
pushing, yes, exactly. The people should know who is paying you to advocate because we all know that money talks. And
exactly.
if the company is paying for your candidacy, there's no way that you're not pushing something for them. And I'm not saying that you can't do that. Go ahead and do it. But the people should know. It shouldn't be secret. If you're going to spend the money, if you're going to use the money, the people should know where it's coming from. And that should
like
affect their decisions.
it makes sense when you're voting on like gun control and then you're trying to vote against it and then you have a big NRA sticker on your chest. Like that, I'm
Yes.
getting money from the NRA. And it's like, well, obviously, yeah,
Yeah.
like why would the NRA not want us to like vote against this. Like he's not voting. He's not doing this because it's the Second Amendment and because it's the American thing to do. He's doing it
Or
because the NRA is telling him
or
to.
maybe it is something that he's willing to do, but that extra spicy $20,000 from the NRA is making it a lot easier for him to feel his position.
1,000 chump change.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
is chump
it
change.
is chump
Who
change.
said it isn't? But I'm
You
not.
think a
He's not going to
senator
say
can buy
$40 million.
And I'm not.
You think a corporation's gonna which is only
Absolutely.
gonna spend it? No, I mean only 20,000.
Directly,
They're gonna
yes.
no,
Directly,
they're
yes,
gonna
because I
spend
think the
they will
maximum for
spend
an
way
individual
more.
donation is $9,999. Everything else has to go through a super PAC, which can't be coordinated with the candidate, right? That's the law as it is. And by the way, that ruling is Citizens United. Um, and so if you were to take money out of politics like they have in other countries, that would also fix this problem. You say, done and dusted. No more political contributions from anybody. There are only small dollar contributions, maximum of $10 per person. The additional money you ask, you're going to get free time on public television. You'll have various slots, and we'll put you on C-SPAN or other fucking places, and it's going to be equal. Same time slots, everything will be fair and equal, and money doesn't play a role anymore because you don't need the money to advertise and market yourself. There's only one place where you're allowed to market yourself on whatever the government approves as the place. In that scenario, money loses its power to speak, loses its power to move, and then you have to actually be a communicator that advocates to the people and moves the people to your side.
See, the problem is that especially with like the Koch brothers and what was it like major super PACs and stuff like that, they would never allow a bill like that to pass.
No, they
There's,
wouldn't because
there's,
it,
there's
it
They
no way
also
in
never
hell.
set term limits because then they lose their lackeys.
exactly it affects their power. And at the end of the day, this is all about power, right? They've made billions of dollars selling oil, I know, at least for one thing, and now they don't want green energy proposals. They don't want any of that stuff, and they push all of their lackeys, all of their subordinates. I mean, I'd even go as far as to say, dollar slaves, because they will do literally anything for that Koch brothers cash. Koch brother cash, right? Because one of them passed away. Um, and so it's it's just sad because billionaires, people like you and me, only get one vote, right? They have a lot more money than us and they could do a lot more things on the side, but they only should get one vote. But because of their vast fortunes, they're allowed to play the game and donate in different ways. They can form an entire pack just for themselves, just solely for the purpose of donating even more money to whoever they want because that person supports them.
Thing is that my only thing is that what I don't like is I personally don't like when there is no integrity in some of these people. Like no one calls them on their bullshit. They always go to like certain like news broadcasters or certain networks where they know I'm not going to get a lot of tough questions. And what it should be is that news broadcasters should be open to the idea, and so should the candidate of what I've said. What I've said in public, I can get called out on, and I better be able to defend it. I better have answers. I better have some form of like information. I need to have my research. Because if somebody were to go after, especially like on Fox News or anything like that, like if Janine Pirro, which would never fucking happen, if Janine Pirro were to go after a United States Republican senator and literally just like call him out on his bullshit, then people would listen because Fox News is a network that the Republicans distinguish as credible. And they should be put accountable. They should be told, this is what you said, please prove it. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen. They're allowed to go on certain networks, make fraudulent claims, things that just is not happening or would happen. And then it sways certain people because they immediately see it's on the news, so it must be true.
there's a couple issues that I detected in there. Um, the
It was
first of which
it
is
Janine Shapiro? Is it
it.
Janine Shapiro?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like she's a bigot, and
Oh, she is. That's why I said this would never happen.
yeah, she would never pick out a Republican, but she would definitely pick out a black person for sure. I could totally see her doing that. Um,
If it's a black Republican, I don't care. I mean, as long as it's somebody.
she probably wouldn't do a black Republican. She would probably pick out a black
Definitely wouldn't do
Democrat.
a black Republican.
What happened? I missed that when you cut out.
I said she definitely wouldn't do a black Republican.
No, that's a strong hate. That's a strong hate fuck.
Yeah, no, I
We
don't
did
think
talk
so.
about this. It's one of the quality.
One of the
What
quality forms.
Oh, fucking yeah, hate fucking.
Yeah, I feel like it's a different kind of hate in her case. A lot more of a pointy white kind of hate, but we'll move on. Um, cross burning, whatever. When it comes to their stars or their heroes like Neem Puro or Tucker Carlson or there's another one. Um, the party moved away from them, right? As Trump moved away from the rest of Fox, because there was that other Brett Baer, is that right? There's another.
Breitbart? You mean Breitbart?
No, 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 not Breitbart. Dear God, no. Brett Baer. I thought he's a news anchor and he's relatively respectable on Fox, but his ratings have tanked because he went as far as to say, to call stuff about the Trump administration out. He lost his fan base, and I think he lost his show. Um, and a lot of the people from Fox moved over to OAN, One America Network, which is just batshit fucking crazy. Um,
You ever
and
wanted to see what would happen if
Breitbart
they,
and stuff. So it's like
you ever wanted to see what would happen if the Nazis had a news network?
Breitbart.
That's OAN. That's OAN and Breitbart.
Yeah, it's scary, honestly, because um, there's a statistic that I heard 2 or 3 years ago, and it was basically that um, 80% of American children couldn't tell the difference between an opinion and a fact. And the questions were something along the lines of it gave like a descriptor of a scenario in which somebody is expressing, a salesperson most likely is expressing that these are the best olives in the world. I think all of us here know that that is not a fact. You can't, unless you can give me like an analysis that says yes, these are the verifiably these are the healthiest, the biggest, the sweetest, the tastiest, the most sour, and the most umami, olives in the whole fucking world, verified by 3 labs, read them in wheat, then yeah, I'll get behind you. Be like, yeah, verifiably, per the science, these are the best fucking olives in the world. I can tell the difference. That's an opinion to me. And until you can prove otherwise, it's just still an opinion. But 80% of kids can't do that, which leads me to believe that some proportion of adults, also a large proportion, don't know how to do that. Don't know how to take in information and filter it,
Or they don't care.
or they don't care, which is even scarier.
the the sad part is that the country is more divided than it was since probably the Civil War. Uh, we there and not only that, but also there are portions of the country on both liberal and also on Republican sides that decide what facts are true. They don't like listen to all the facts. They literally listen to some facts, go, I like that fact, that's true, and then hear another fact right after and go, no, that's false. That's not good. And that's kind of like what they do, and that's not how it goes. The Our country is very much gone down a road where facts are optional and opinions are more valid, and everyone has an opinion and it's all great. Like all the opinions are great, whereas it's like, and no one's listening to science, no one's listening to what's going on in in politics or anything like that. They just go, "That's what my senator just said, so obviously it must be true." And no one's doing research because why would we?
Because you care to know the truth.
Unfortunately, not enough people do.
That's sad. Because I honestly, I you can fix the problems in government, but you can't fix something that people don't want to fix, right? If they don't see that what they're doing is detrimental to not only themselves but to the country, then they're not going to change, right? And everyone around them who they respect and trust tells them that you're doing a great job. So, how do you contend? How do you fight that that seed from growing into the terrible, terrible tree that, I feel like I
Honestly,
see down the path in the future.
honestly, what should happen is that if you say something that is knowingly false, like I know what I'm saying is wrong, and I know what I'm saying is false, the network should have to pay a fine. Like I'm legitimately saying something that's false, and I'm telling the people as in that it's true. You as a network should have to pay like $1 million fine or a $2 million fine. Because if I say enough of those and those start to stack, you'll start changing your fucking tune. Because the networks will automatically go, well, we can't keep spewing this bullshit because the more facts, the more things that we kind of say that aren't true and say that they're facts, we're gonna get charged. You got to hit them where the pocketbook is. I'm not saying anybody go to jail or anything like that. I'm just saying fine them. You said 5 things that were untrue on your network.
I
$10
feel
million.
I feel like that gets kind of sticky because because of the freedom that the First Amendment gives us, especially what the Supreme Court has ruled the First Amendment gives politicians. They could basically lie and call it political speak, right? Like in Donald Trump's defense for January 6th, if January's defense for and Trump's defense for January 6th, that part of the argument was something along the lines of no reasonable person would have would have accepted what I said as true. Not no reasonable person would have heard the words that I said and thought, "Yeah, let's go storm the Capitol." Because of the First
They
Amendment. This
did,
was just political speak,
but people did,
but they did. But his
and
defense is going to probably stand because he was a politician and used political speak, political
but
speech.
here's what I'm saying. I'm saying that like at a rally and stuff like that, yeah, you have political speech. But what I'm saying is on a news network, if you're knowingly saying false things, like this is false, and no one's trying to stop the anchor or whoever is on there from saying something that is knowingly false, and you guys agree with it, there should be a fine. You should have to pay some money or something along those lines to kind of go like, no, you need to rectify this. Because if not, then what the fuck is the FCC doing? What
Stopping
what
people from
what
cursing on in the air.
what point do they have if they're not trying to police facts? Like, how could
Unity.
you? What are you talking about? What?
What are they there for? Stop people from cursing on the air, preventing nudity on national
But that
television.
but there are bigger issues than just that. And the problem is that if that's the case, and that's the only thing that the FCC is for, and to like rate things to make sure that certain people don't do it, then it's a wasted department, and we need to get fucking rid of it or reformat it. Because if they were actual watchdogs of like news networks are meant to say truthful shit. As long as you're on public airways, you can't say shit that isn't true. If you want to go get a cable channel and like you pay for a cable channel where we can fucking monitor you, you can say whatever the fuck you want. But as long as you're on public TV, you have to say what the fucking truth is.
Yeah, but you're speaking common sense and rationality,
Yeah, and that's how the country should work.
and it doesn't.
That's the sad part.
It doesn't.
But
Because
the
if
thing is
you're
that
because just like Adrian said, it's political speech, it's freedom of speech, it's all these things. Like you have every right to spew nothing but nonsense, and guess what? You can do it.
but the thing is that you shouldn't
You,
be able to do it on the news.
Our country is plagued, absolutely fucking plagued, with this idea that people could never be this shitty. You know, people would never ever go this low. We don't have to make a law about, weaponizing political speech because no one would no one would ever do that, right? Until they do.
But, but that's the thing, though, is that when you weaponize freedom of speech, you're weaponizing one of the, founding principles of our nation. Of just I'm going to weaponize freedom of speech, and it's not like you can't restrict free speech. Free speech has already been restricted in several areas. Like you can, which are like I can't say political things as a citizen without having like I can't do like a political thing without having to do it in a zone or anything else. Like I have to actually do it in a demonstration. I can't do it in there are things that have to go down. Like if I were to burn a flag just to say fuck it, then it's illegal. But if I go
Hmm?
to a political zone and to a free speech area and burn a flag in representation of the way that the COVID-19 response is or whatever it is, it's perfectly legal. You can't say that freedom of speech cannot be regulated when it's already been regulated before. And the reason why I say that for news networks is because people have an understanding that if it's said on the news, then it's true because it's journalism. It's basically saying, I have a newspaper that's full of lies. And people shouldn't have no. If anybody were to say that there's no rational representation of the things that were said on my news network were true, that's bullshit because you're a fucking news network. The minute that you put the word news in your title, you have become fact in the mind of anyone watching you. So that means that we should regulate whether or not you are saying what is the truth. Because if you're just spewing out bullshit, then what the fuck?
What's the point?
You're you're actively you're actively making people into radicals. You're radicalizing people that wouldn't have been radicalized anyway.
I think it's more like you're providing disinformation. You're
No,
being
because
dishonest and providing
think
disinformation
think
towards so you know
about
it's true.
January, but think about January 6th. Those people were radicalized in that moment by not only the president of the United States, but also by the news networks. These
well,
people were radicalized.
to
People
be
who
fair,
voted
they were
against
also
President.
primed beforehand too.
But that's what I'm saying. These people, over months, years, these networks have been spewing down bullshit and misinformation to the point where they are saying, if you don't fight for your country, then you're not an American. They radicalize these people like the Taliban. And that's what they did. They fucking attacked the Capitol. They attack people who are peacefully protesting in the streets of Chicago, in the streets of DC. Why? Because you radicalize people. They are no better than the fucking Taliban at that point. Because that's what the Taliban did. They used the news networks and told lies about the Americans, saying that we were going in house by house, killing people, that you needed to fight for your lands and you needed to protect the people that are around you, and then the Americans are here to just take over and everything else. And that radicalized people into fighting for the Taliban. Literally using exactly the same tactic, but just for a different reason, and it's just as dangerous.
I agree that it's dangerous. Um, I guess I just don't really understand or know how to make it any any better. We're kind of like between a rock, a hard place, and some like unobtainium or some shit. Like we're gonna get smashed and pulverized by the unobtainium and the diamond before the rock even has its chance to pulverize us further. Like how in what direction do we move? You take free speech, you're taking away a fundamental right that we've had for what 300 years. You go for you go for trying to get rid or you try to tax or try to fine people for not telling the truth. All they're going to say is we are telling the truth, and they're going to take it to the court of public opinion. And then what? Uh,
It's but that's based on fact. That is based on not your truth. What is the truth?
but
You can't just spew out false information. The same way that you spew out false information. If you were to walk into a theater and say and yell the word bomb, you are spreading out
that's
false information that could put people in danger.
that's
It is
different.
the
It's because you're
same.
putting
No,
someone in danger.
and
That's why
that's
that's
what
an
these
issue.
people and that's what these news networks are doing. They're putting people in danger. They're putting in people in danger of voting against their interest, of putting people in that are only out for themselves, of voting against on housing reform that might actually help them keep their lives and keep their families fed. That's gonna cause harm. You're lying to cause harm. It's the same principle.
But see, you're saying it's a lie, and I would probably say that it's being, dishonest. They would say that this is how they see it. This is their view.
That's
And
not a point of view. That's a
politicians aren't
lie.
stupid people, right? If
Yeah,
you
they
make
are.
a law that says you can't lie, all they're going to do is imply things. It's not lying, I'm implying something. It's not a lie. I'm implying something that's false, but that's not a lie. It's an implication. And if you choose to accept my implication, that's your decision. There's ways of
Okay.
there's you can get around that as a politician,
Okay.
and politicians aren't stupid. They're smart enough to get elected and put into their seat.
Trust me, there's not an IQ test to be a politician. Not
No,
all of them
there's
are fucking.
definitely not Gomer.
Not a lot of them are. Not all of them are fucking super geniuses. Uh,
Well,
some of
look,
them.
look, 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 Nick. I get where you're coming from. I like the idea. It's unfeasible and it makes no sense in a good way to do it. As Adrian tried to say, there's no real easy way to do it.
I don't see a
What
path.
you're trying to do is prevent misinformation that's creating radicals on either side,
And causing harm.
right? And stop preventing of harm, which is a good thing, and I think everyone would like that. And based on how you're speaking about the issue, some might even argue you're radical
Also,
because you're going very hard on censorship of misinformation. And as Adrian says, everything is up into interpretation. What I think would be a good measure to help prevent misinformation is people would need, I don't know if it's an extra year of schooling, but to learn about what basic politics and basic things so that they can be informed, so they can have an informed opinion and be able to learn how to deduce bullshit from not. Because as you and I probably think, hey, this is common sense of saying, hey, Obama isn't a Muslim born from another country, this and that, and we can see all the facts. And even though they're going to still spew it, some people are just going to blindly accept what they already have. And, whether it's political or not, it's just ignorance, whether they choose it or not.
that
And
one's
if,
strictly racist.
you know what I mean? And if we can at least say, hey, you know what, everyone has a base education of blank, even like basic adulting, adulting 101, like, then we would be better off as a society. I,
Problem is that there's a good majority of kids that actually don't finish school.
I
They
agree.
don't,
Yeah.
No,
they
I
don't,
agree.
they don't
And
finish.
that's hard.
They don't finish school. I mean, when are you supposed to take this? I mean, there's several people inside, especially inside of certain states, that don't even finish high school. They don't even start high school. They maybe get like a year in and then they drop out. When am I supposed to get this education? When am I supposed to do this? It is an entire way of thinking that you have to change, not just schooling or anything else. You have to physically change the way that people think. And the reason why I'm saying that we have to not censor but regulate. How is it censorship? How is it that I can't say fuck because that is bad and inappropriate towards people, but I can lie about a political issue and tell them that politicians are criminals?
And
How
that
is it that that's the same that one a bad word is worse than the other? Because honestly, I'd take people saying fuck over the fact that I'm being lied to.
over Pizzagate.
It's unimaginable. The idea that people can't that it's like, oh yeah, this is censorship, whereas it's more regulation. It's the safety of the people.
The
And it's not like you're regulating everything or you're telling them that you can't spew this shit. What it's telling the networks is make sure that whoever you have on either knows their shit or isn't going to lie.
my
Adrian?
issue with setting something like that up is if it's a regulation that's not codified by law, it's going to be subject to whoever the administration power is. This is your view about what's a fact and what's an opinion. What's the Republican view? That's what I'm afraid of. You can't
Ooh,
have
it's
it.
gonna go
It
around
won't go
fucking
both ways because they're gonna say Antifa and anything liberal and anytime you mention socialism, that's a lie. We're not a socialist country. We're not Russia.
But the thing
You
is
can't
that
talk about socialism or any kind of socialist giving. You can't talk about other countries and how they're doing better than us. You can't mention that their schools are better because we teach different things here. American
but
exceptionalism.
the thing is that you can. It's not like it's not which like it's not like it's separate but equal. This is an actual. This would be something that's actually equal across the board. MSNBC couldn't just have have a liberal that's spewing bullshit as well, along with Fox couldn't have a conservative that's also spewing their own bullshit. They would have to at that point tell the facts. What are the facts of this situation?
But who's the
Don't give me
referee?
your don't give me your view, and that should be the news networks. The
Who's the
news networks should step up and be the fucking adults in the room
be their own
because they're the
referees to
journalists.
find themselves?
Well, they should be the referee to talk to the actual people. They should actually they should be the fucking journalists that they are.
But they're
As a
supposed to
journalist,
be.
you're supposed to be seeking out the truth. And if you're not doing that, then you're just a fucking puppet. And that's most of Fox News, unfortunately. There's some, don't get me wrong, there are some good people on Fox News that actually do try. And, it is rough. I'm sorry. And people have left Fox News, joined MSNBC, done everything else. That's understandable. Whatever. But what I'm saying is that it's regulating both sides. That way we can't just say bullshit. So the liberals can't get mad at the conservatives for saying which are because the liberal said something that was a lie, and the conservatives aren't telling lies either. Now we're just trying to debate the facts.
So
These are what the facts are. Let's debate them.
this makes me feel like not Sundar. Who was the guy who was in charge of the FCC under Trump, the first one? How he made a different ruling for what is considered acceptable practice like on the internet and stuff. And that is my issue. You're saying that it's going to be based on the honor system. I just said a couple minutes ago that the
No,
honor system
saying
doesn't work.
the
And
FCC would
if
have to do it.
but the FCC is run by the administration. They're going to choose the chairman of
And
the FCC, and that means that again, it's going to be another institution that changes with the political wind. It's not going to be consistent. Idealistically, it would be consistent. If you had some overarching authority that was not beholden to an administration, perhaps, that had guaranteed funding, maybe. Then now you're playing with fire. But if
that's what
it's just going to be regulated by an administration,
no,
it's just going to
no,
change. The what's a fact is going to change for every 4 years,
no. It
and
should
it's
be
going to be ineffective.
it should be its own independent, which are fact like its own independent. What was it? Department where this is what their entire job is just to fucking find the truth. Who's saying bullshit? Who's not? We're trying to regulate what goes into the hearts and minds of the people. And the hearts and minds of the people should be hearing the fucking truth. And this is primarily going for the news networks. If the news networks are saying bullshit, then they should be called out and said they're saying fucking lies. This is why they're getting fined.
When do things become truth?
When there are tangible facts that can prove what you're saying.
So when the beginning of the election, right, when everything was going on and they were claiming miscounts and all that fun stuff and fraud and all that stuff, when does it stop being true? Or when does their claims stop being true?
The minute that they didn't find anything.
Okay. During that whole time, are you telling me that they could be fined for spewing misinformation because at a later date it was found not true?
That's why I'm saying if you knowingly said something that was untrue.
Okay, so knowingly.
The minute that they said there's nothing.
Knowingly.
Because people make mistakes. Journalism all the time shifts. Sometimes information comes in, sometimes it was incorrect. How exactly can I regulate what was incorrect? But if I knowingly know the facts as a reporter, and I then tell you the opposite of those facts, there should be some repercussion.
How do you prove they know what they know?
They have
Nick wants numbers. Nick has numbers.
They have databases. They have information. The news networks don't just randomly get documentation in and then just throw it away and not regulate when they got it. You can easily be investigated.
It depends on what's on that document. Yeah.
And it depends what's at stake here. Because if there's a $2 million fine on the line, I would tread the document. And I'm pretty sure another business with unscrupulous morals might think the same thing.
I think that opens up more things of people saying, well, I'm just not going to look into it too deep and I'm going to say what I'm going to say. Because I didn't knowingly say what I said. I didn't have the facts. Nick, trust me, it's frustrating for all of us. Because there's no one's going to win.
The problem with it is that nobody wants to do anything about it.
People want to do something about it, but not enough.
People in power.
Not enough of them. Not enough Republicans want to move over to make it more fair. That's I feel like the issue that we come up against. We don't have enough people that want it to be fair because there are people that are in power. There are people who have been empowered by the system who don't want to leave that power. Why would you want to? I commend you, Nick. I appreciate your points, and I would love for them to work. I would really love it. And maybe they will work. I don't know. I don't have the facts in front of me. I'm very cynical when it comes to getting cooperation from enough people to actually make a difference. And because my entire adult life has been that. It's just a bounce between maybe there's some hope to God this is fucking terrible to what is that? I feel it's like this is terrible again. And it just never seems to get better. And as a matter of fact, not only does it not seem to get better, it very obviously is getting much, much worse at a very fast rate.
But the thing is that things do get better though. It may be smaller, but there is some instances where the political system does work. There are systems in place that when they do work, they fucking work.
Yeah, there are some in place, but there are also I know you agree that there are a number of them that are fucking busted.
Yeah, unemployment, fucking broken.
Yes.
If anybody's ever had to call an unemployment office, good fucking luck.
Yes, if you've actually needed to use unemployment,
you need to call at 8:00 and then keep calling until you're on hold. One of the 50 people on hold.
That's super rough for your state, for your fucking state.
Yeah.
So in California, where there's 38 million people, and 80% of them are, a lot of them work in restaurants and stuff. It's hard.
One of our friends, that struggle. Jaron, Delta Monkey Jaron, is actually streaming right now. But one thing that I did see is that he had told me there's a new service that is now available for $20. Well, they will set up a bot that'll call unemployment for you. And it will rapidly keep on calling unemployment for $20. And then once unemployment is on hold, they will then forward the call to you.
God
And
damn! I wish I would have thought about this.
That's brilliant.
if unemployment hangs up on you, they will redial for free.
That is
And call you back.
that's a smart idea because people would use it, but at the same time, I really wish that person would have made it. And we'll wrap up here. I really wish that person would have made it free because these are people that are on unemployment. They don't have extra money to
They're gonna
be
get.
spending.
They're gonna get $5. They're gonna get their money later. So post date that check, baby.
I
I wish they
understand why you would
Welcome
sell
to
it.
America, bro. It's capitalism, baby. We need our bag.
I feel you, Adrian. I
That's
feel
true.
you. I'm like, hey, like you should make it free, but also,
Socialist,
people will fucking, people
communist
will buy it.
motherfucker.
People will buy it. I thought
I'm gonna send some buzzwords at you real quick, and then just to make myself sound smarter.
Okay.
Buzzwords.
Maybe
Yeah,
some
like
buzzwords.
communist, socialist,
Oh,
Antifa,
Don't do that.
fake news. Look, buzzwords.
Yeah, don't do fake news. No.
don't Antifa me, bro. Uh, I think that's gonna wrap it up for us today. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you, boys, for coming by, giving your opinions. I know we got a little bit hot and spicy there. Maybe we can patch our differences up over a beer over the weekend or something.
You wanted this. I wanted to talk about anime.
We can still talk about anime. There are many days ahead of us. Hopefully. Who knows?
Don't mind us. We're
where
just
going.
radicals.
All right then. That's going to do it for this episode of the I'm Sorry But podcast, where Andrew has admitted to being a radical. My
We
name
all
is
are.
Adrian, and thank you so much for coming by. Nick, Andrew, you guys want to close on something?
Go vote.
Yes. For the love of
Mm.
God, please go vote. That's the only way.
Go vote and go run for office.
Go vote and educate yourself. Just don't accept what people tell you as true, even your authority figures. Trust but verify.
Yeah, get at least 3 sources of information.
And don't have them all be the same side. That's not a good.
Yeah.
That's not a good spread. When you I'm sure many of the people have gone to college or will go to college or are considering going to college. You learn this in college. You get multiple sources from multiple places to verify that what you're actually looking for is correct. It's a science thing, kind of peer reviewing. Just look through different sources of information that have conflicting points of view and decide for yourself. Make your own decision. You're a smart person. You can do it. I believe in you.
8th grade.
8th grade what?
8th grade, to answer your question, Nick, earlier of when we would make people learn about politics.
Right at the end of the mandatory education process.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I had a constitutional law class when I was in 8th grade.
And look at you. You're very educated. You know your points. You started fighting. See how good it is? At least you have some ground to stand on versus someone just saying, well, Donald Trump said on Twitter.
I don't know. I had a
Education
liberal,
is key.
I had a
Education is key.
liberal I had a literal lawyer like teach us law and constitutional law when we were in 8th grade.
I mean, don't tell your school because doxing, but Jesus Christ, Nick. I know you've talked about the school before. It's just the
We had
bougiest.
constitutional law.
Yeah, I had a constitutional law professor
For
lecturing me
8th
about
grade.
constitutional law
For
in
8th grade.
grade.
I had to know the justices before we graduated.
Fucking Harvard prep. What the fuck?
That's great. Honestly, dude.
Oxford.
You can't tell me
preparatory?
that getting
Yeah.
educated is a bad idea.
No,
Maybe
education
not.
is always a good idea.
We also had a literature class. The same professor taught it, and she would teach Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn.
Wow.
Interesting points. Interesting
Wow.
books to choose for a lawyer. I'm pretty sure that was not coincidental.
Because she knew that it was going to be used in high school.
I was going down an entirely different road.
No, it was because she knew that the high schools were going to be using that for essays, so she wanted us to read it prior, so that way when we went to high school we didn't have to read it.
All right,
Not where I thought you were going with it. I thought
not
it was to give a
not
good counter argument to people who were barely reading it, and just kind of give them a good perspective on it. But yeah, no, I like that. That's pretty funny.
that's better. That's better than what I was thinking. I apologize for being as cynical as I am.
Well, you are a cynical person.
It's
I
true.
did.
Follow us on social media, guys.
Everything's gonna be in the
All
description
our things
below.
in the description. Love you guys.
Have a good night. Bye bye. Clear.